I've noticed a lot of council candidates in the office. If you're running for city council, can you stand? Let's acknowledge people who are running for city council. There were others too, I think, but so they're putting themselves out there, and we're going to be critical of them, but we want to support them in their public service. So let's get to the panel, and we'll begin with 13 minutes. Judy Von Seldnick, Helen Gym.
Thank you. Oh, she's so nice. I could do this every night. I don't get treated like this at home or anywhere in the office. I think being a politician would be fun. You guys really get. So, Helen, I just want to thank you, along with everybody else, for your great service. You've just been a wonderful city councilwoman and just done a great job, and really appreciate you're willing to risk running for mayor as a woman. And so it's very exciting. So I guess my question to you is that this job as mayor is probably as complex as it's ever been, given everything that's going on in, you know, the city and the world and everywhere. And you know, your background really has been, you know, primarily government education. I sort of think about this as a corporate job and being the CEO of a very complex organization, and where your leadership skills, your ability to attract top talent, to motivate, inspire, energize, but more important than anything, is to bring an organization together that's been through, you know, a lot of trauma. And this is happening in corporate America everywhere, and I'm in the business of helping some of these companies find people to work through that. And so, you know, I think in this election, in this day and age, the skill set and your, you know, would love to hear how would you get us back on the right track, bring us together, provide the leadership, and what would be your solutions? What's the bottom line? You know, how are you going to solve poverty? How are you going to solve unemployment? And how are you going to solve education? I mean,
You got 10 minutes left.
Okay.
For all of them.
Well, good evening, everybody, and it's a wonderful time to be here. And thank you to the citizen. Thank you so much, everybody, for spending your evening with me. And Judy, thank you also as well for being a fearless champion of women in elected office and in leadership all across the city of Philadelphia. So I think your question comes down to, you know, I've got 30 years of experience inspiring and leading the city towards wanting to make change. And I did this largely without political titles or power. The world that I come out of, I don't bring political titles to be invited to the table. What I do bring is a different kind of skill set. I know how to build and mobilize unusual types of coalitions of people who can actually go out there and exhort for change. I know how to bring really smart and innovative policy solutions to really sticky situations. And I have a relentless focus on actually fixing problems that change the ways in which people live. And I want to make sure that those are the people who are able to say that something is different today than it was yesterday. That to me is one of the big things. It's one of the reasons that I just don't do, you know, before I ever came into office, I would say, you know, that's how I got the Philadelphia Parking Authority, to pay the first money to our public schools in years and years and years. I walked into one of the most dangerous high schools in the state that had been on a list time and time again, and we turned it around because we organized young people to hold a school system accountable for a safe learning environment, which is literally the most essential thing that they needed to get an education. I don't ever accept half-assed ideas to fix really big problems, and I think because of that, people around me get better. I think that I really value people at every level of an organization because I think they have a critical role to play about how to transform things. It's not just about a top-down edict issuing, you know, somebody just declaring things left and right. It's really about getting people at all levels of your organization to buy into something that they never did before, because they're ultimately the ones that are going to be able to deliver on that. And then finally, I think the biggest thing is that I am just, you've probably heard that I'm pretty relentless. And I probably should sleep more, but I think that is the kind of stuff that I'm bringing to the table each and every day. And I think it's what's enabled me to do things, even when I didn't have the political title and power to do it. And when I was on council, I was able to show what I could do. But as mayor, I intend to lead with that same kind of leadership and vision to take on the city's biggest problems and to prove that we actually never had to live like this, that we could fix the things that held us back.
So given where we are today in the city and the problems and the challenges that we face, what would you say are the top 3 positions that would be the most important for you to fill in your administration? And how would you hold them accountable?
Yep, so my managing director, no question. I think that there will be the police commissioner, no question. And the next education secretary, officer, whomever, because I have been very clear from day one that this city will not succeed unless we bring our city and our school system together. Every mayor before me has effectively either turned their back on our public schools or has failed to fulfill the promise of what education can be. And I will be that mayor that is going to make sure that our city and our schools are going to rise together, because I do not see it happening any other way. That is a common mission, and I think that we're gonna deliver that. Now, how do we hold them accountable? I've said very clearly, all roads lead to the mayor. I think it's about having a clear mission, a vision. It's about a select set of priorities, not 10,000 things all at once. But if safety, cleanliness of our city, and the education and well-being of our kids are our top priorities right now, then let's get to work and make it happen and make sure that everybody within the organization knows they have a critical role to play to make that possible.
I love that you're so specific. So now I'm going to ask you another question that I hope you'll be equally specific about, and it's the enormous crime problem we have. What exactly would you do about it, and what would your time frame be for getting it back to where we could all be comfortable again?
Yeah, I think that all of us are grieving the loss of Officer Chris Fitzgerald, and I hope that his legacy will be a safer city. And, I've been very clear that I intend to deliver by taking action, that there are things that we have to do right away. That's why I've called for a day 1 state of emergency. We've talked about the coordination of pulling all of our city agencies together, zeroed in on key areas like taking illegal guns off of our streets and creating a multi-federal state county task force to help us do that. It's about making sure that we are zeroed in on 911 response times, because right now, if you call for help, everyone should know that help is on the way. And we have the 2nd highest 911 response times in the country, and that is just not acceptable. And, that 3rd area is really making sure that we get officers and other people out onto the streets with a visible presence of both restoring public trust, but also keeping eyes out for people and letting them know that people are not alone right now. But I'm also really clear that as much as we're going to talk about all of this, protections and crime, the fundamental root causes of the things that we are dealing with have a lot to do with the failure of investment that happens in communities that are deeply racked by violence. You can see it from the moment a child walks out of their door, from the fact that they pass by streets that are, beyond filthy and dirty, because of the fact that we see vacant lots and all these types of things. There are actually immediate things that we can do that are investment-based, that aren't just about leaning into the fear and all the other things that, that have defined this conversation about safety, but is actually about investing in communities that have been too far left behind. And I want to say this, I don't think any of that stuff is like long-term. Those are immediate responses. Cleaning and brightening up streets is an immediate response to crime in dangerous neighborhoods that are dark and frightening and filthy right now. And there is plenty of research and work by Eugenia South that proves all of that. I want to make sure that we're dealing with mental health and, adequate treatment and supports. It's one of the reasons why I fought to make sure that we piloted the first non-police mental health crisis response units so that police officers could respond to the issues that people wanted them to respond to, and trained EMTs and first responders and mental health specialists can respond to those that are being requested by the individuals asking for them. We know that works, and that's deeply important. And, I am obviously just going to be deeply concerned about what's happening to young people. I think today, before we walked in, we just read about another 2 children who were harmed by gun violence on their way home from school, and it is shocking that we've had over 90 young people being hurt by gun violence since the year started. And I have been very clear that we just cannot have this. Parents cannot be afraid to send their children to school. And so I want to see our city zeroed in on safe passages to and from school so that children can be assured that they are safe heading and coming back from the most important institution to them, and that is getting their education.
Thank you. My final question is, what do you see are the key obstacles that are preventing you making these changes, and why isn't more happening? Why is this dragging on so much? I mean, what are we missing? Is it resources? Is it bad communications? I mean, why? This has been going on far too long. What do you see as the challenges, and what are you going to do to pick up the pace here?
Well, picking up the pace is definitely something that I am always invested in, and kind of known for. Last name Gym. So I would say that a lot of the problems that we have in the city are largely because there are so many different agencies that are largely outside the purview of city control. When you talk about, and it's really almost every big thing that we can think of, whether it's housing, whether it's safety, whether it's education, you're talking about multiple agencies that are responsible that are largely outside of the direct control of a mayor. So the mayor's power and the mayor's responsibility right now is not just to convene, but to actually coordinate and mobilize people towards action and inspire them to be part of a unified response system, even if they may not be directly accountable to that mayor. That takes a very different skill set than what many people are used to be having. And I also think that it takes a different kind of leader. I have, since we just ended Eagle season, right? So, I think some people want to be somebody, they just want to be a mayor. And I don't know, I sometimes think that some mayors think that they are quarterbacks on a team. And I've just never felt that, a mayor is the quarterback for me. It's not some kind of glass-jawed Tom Brady type, who doesn't want to get hit. To me, the mayor is your offensive line, right? You're taking the hits, you're making the tackles, and at the end of the day, your team runs through. Not you, but your team makes it across the finish line. And that is either your school kids, or it's people who deserve housing in this city, it's children who deserve a real opportunity, young people looking for a job, a parent asking themselves whether this is a place to call home. To me, those are the people that have to make it across. And I do think that a lot of mayors maybe want to be somebody and don't realize how many hits you actually have to take in order for the city to rise. But I think I'm that kind of person.
Great. Let's move on to Dr. Keith Leaphart.
Pleasure
Thank you.
to see you, Helen. So I want to start off, and I think, many people would say that you are probably the most progressive candidate. Would you agree?
We should keep talking.
Okay. Let's say you're probably one of the most progressive candidates, and I think one of the concerns around, the direction of the city is that maybe we've gotten too progressive. Specifically when it comes to, and this might get you in trouble or get me in trouble, specifically when it comes to public safety, right? We've seen that we've gotten, and this is coming from someone who worked in reentry, worked with Mayor Nutter on prison reform, was talking about criminal justice reform 10, 12 years ago. there's a balance here in the city where I think we may have gone too far to the left as it relates to criminal justice reform and public safety. The other area is there's a concern around what happens from a business culture, right? Where would you be as it relates to building a pro-growth culture as it relates to the business community? So could you talk to those who are concerned around us going too far and you being closer to a Larry Krasner versus someone who's putting us in the center position?
Okay, so first thing I want to say is I am running for mayor. I am not running for district attorney. I am running for mayor of the city of Philadelphia, and it's a very different type of position. I think, people who want to line folks up on some kind of ideological spectrum that honestly just came up since Trump are missing the boat on politics. I was doing a lot of this work before there was ever a word for progressive. There was people who believed in their public schools. There believed that we had overly mass incarcerated to the point that it actually depressed opportunities for communities all across Philadelphia. There were people who believed in a vibrant, healthy global economy that relied as much on immigrants and new residents and made sure that people in our city could stay long, could age gracefully in our city with. The idea that we have warped ourselves in the last literally 5 years on this spectrum on what is progressive, what is not progressive, has taken us away from the really two big ideologies that are in politics right now. The people who get stuff done and the people who talk about it. I have learned in my time before I ever got into office what it looked like to actually get something done. To take a school system. When I came in, we had shut down 30 public schools. We were on a massive disinvestment. My kids went to schools, had elementary and middle schools that did not have nurses and counselors in them. And when I got into office, I would say that I was going to be a totally different kind of leader. And we did start to turn around a mass disinvestment in our schools, made sure that we brought back nurses and counselors, social workers, arts and music back to every public school. I made sure that we got a clean water campaign going that would mobilize a $500 million infrastructure campaign for new school buildings, and that is how you grow a city. That is actually what you do to turn things around and get us off this merry-go-round of are you this or are you that, little labels that people put on to make the world make sense. The world is not making sense right now. And tapping on labels is not going to fix or help you understand a political candidate. Understanding who they are and what they have done based on their actual track record on taking on big problems is what actually does, in my opinion. And I forgot your second part.
Pro-business. Where are you at on the business?
I believe in a flourishing business community. There is absolutely no way that our city doesn't grow unless we see our business community grow at all levels, small, middle, and large businesses as well. And I have been invested in growing our city. I'm very proud to be part of a group of people that have always said that we're going to grow our city by attracting new residents, by keeping the economy going and vibrant, by making sure that it's local and small and that we're reaching into communities all over Philadelphia, and that the defining mission for business for me is that opportunity. It's just got to say opportunity for all. And I believe that I have tried to lead that mission. I think I've helped grow Philadelphia. I think some of the communities that I've been part of have been part of the significant growth. I'm very proud that, in the middle of the pandemic, we were able to do a census that proved that we were the fastest growing city in the Commonwealth, growing by over 80,000. Now, we got to hang on to that. And it's very clear, for me at least, that we need to grow it. And I would say that a little bit more of my priority, especially in this post-COVID recovery environment where everything is really uncertain right now, the best way for me to attract jobs to Philadelphia is by making sure those employees in those companies actually want to live here. That is the difference, because companies can be located in many different places right now, but their employees have to live here. And I know that when I make Philadelphia desirable for Philadelphians, other people will want to see the city as much as we do. And I'm committed to doing that.
So what are those? What are those things specifically you would point to make Philadelphia desirable for those businesses and those people to live here?
Yeah, so I don't think there's any question that there's a lot that we can do in terms of hanging up that welcome sign. I have heard from businesses plenty of times that our city is unwieldy and it is unresponsive, and I hope that I will do everything possible, as I have done with my other types of work, to be as responsive and welcoming and engaged with businesses all over. That includes, making sure that our Commerce Department has a really healthy business services division. That's making sure that there are maybe, economic hubs in every neighborhood so people can go in, pay fines, address permits, get questions answered, resolve problems without having to see City Hall as a big black hole that sucks everything in. I want to make sure that, that we have a real opportunities and investment fund and a mindset around that. But I'm also really clear that when I listen to a lot of businesses, they are very clear that education, safety, and cleanliness are top of mind in terms of what they want to see for their companies, as well as for their employees. And so I am going to lean in on that. I mean, this is our bread and butter. Education, safety, and cleanliness is the things that not only meet a business need, it meets the needs of neighborhoods all across Philadelphia. I want us to approach this conversation about how to grow our city from one that actually builds the most resilient city and stronger communities, healthier children, and people who have dignity in their everyday life, not just at work.
So it sounds like, could you go over your top 3 priorities? Is it education, public? What are your top 3 priorities and the goals associated with those?
I think that there's no question that the community safety issue is paramount. And so I think that, we talked about some of those things, including like a 100-day agenda that I sort of laid out, that I want to really take, if we didn't go through that, I'm happy to go through that again. But as I said before, mayors have left our public school system behind, and I am not going to do that. I have had a 30-year track record in how we turn around our public schools, how we actually make sure that we are going to put all of our capital resources into getting our schools back into shape, making sure that we are inspiring a new generation of educators and individuals who can fill our public schools, and that we're taking a really concerted effort to see a 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., 7 day a week, 365 day a year approach towards caring for our kids from universal pre-K all the way up to college and beyond. That's the mindset that we're gonna have to do in order to make that promise to every family member, to every new parent who's asking about whether the city will be safe for them, or any 10-year-old that ever looks at you in the eye and says, is this city safe for me? And that answer has to be yes, this city is for you. It's all about you and your opportunities. And then I think the third thing is, I'm leaning on a vibrant, I'm leaning on this, not even a vision, but I feel the heartbeat of the city all the time, through the people and communities that are hungering for economic opportunity, for a chance to demonstrate life and vitality. And so I want to bring that back to the city of Philadelphia. I want to bring some joy back to our city. I'd like to see us lean in the city of the Sounds of Philadelphia, to bring back arts and culture, to remind ourselves that our parks can be filled not just with darkness and gates and surrounding things and keep out signs, but actually be filled with the life and vitality of barbecues and picnics and birthday celebrations and other types of things, music venues for places that don't have easy access to museums. These are not far off things. These are not things that cost millions of dollars to do. They are at our fingertips. And my personal belief is that if I'm a different kind of leader, then everything has to change. That starts with budgets, that starts with policies, and it starts with an attitude that this city has, the mayor and all of city government has to get out of City Hall and back out into the communities where all the life and all the possibilities actually are.
So we're coming to the end. What would you point to as some of your biggest kind of legislative successes?
I think, when I first came in, I heard that there were almost 1 in 14 renters who were being evicted. That is 22,000, not people, but households every single year, 500 every single week, 52 weeks out of the year. And it was like everything was geared towards that. I remembered when I was a teacher, and, I would say, so-and-so isn't here today, and, do we know what happened? And, the thing that always struck me was that it wasn't like a city official, it wasn't a school district official, it wasn't my principal who told me. It was like their classmate is a 10-year-old that said, they got evicted, and so he's not coming to school anymore because they don't live here. And I have never forgotten what it meant to have a young child just be so disrupted like that. So when I came in and I heard and saw all these statistics, and I saw everything that we were doing just geared towards an eviction with no off-ramp, no opportunity for anybody to say, hey, let's try and do something different. Everything was lined up against it. There were court systems, there was a sheriff's office, you had city agencies, laws that were on the books, and I had to figure out how to turn that around. And so, you don't go to the places where harm is being caused, because that's not a great place to start a conversation about how we're going to fix something. You go out to the people, and we held town halls and speak outs, and we put a face on people who are experiencing evictions, because they weren't random people. They aren't just a signer on a contract. They were women, they were mothers, they were caretakers of the disabled, the elderly, and of children. And as soon as we shone a face on them, as soon as we listened to them say what it meant to keep a roof over your head, or that a medical bill now threw you out of the house in a wheelchair and almost nothing else, I really found that everything changed. Like, people just, however people came into the conversation, they just reoriented themselves, and it was just different. And so those things started to open up. We started off with a pilot project, $500,000 to go for a tenant legal defense fund, and then it continued to grow. And when the pandemic hit, this is a question, like, when crisis hits, what do? The principle was already clear. We keep our people housed, because that's what people needed. And we ended up building out one of the most successful eviction prevention programs in the country. We slashed evictions by 2/3. We kept 50,000 plus people housed every single year. We distributed $250 million in rent assistance to tens of thousands of landlords in what was probably the biggest rescue effort of a single industry in any time. And now today, 180 cities across 36 states, red and blue, progressive, whatever they want to call themselves, I'm sure they're not using the word progressive, copy what we started right here in Philadelphia. And I'm going to put a little feather. Joe Biden, in his National Renter Bill of Rights, included the law that started in Philadelphia, eviction diversion, as a corner piece of a national mission to reform and keep people housed in crisis. And I think that what that proved to me, because that beginning was not 20 years ago. That beginning was yesterday. It was literally 5 years ago that we started out with this. That transformation from this to here was about not a bunch of electeds telling us what was politically possible. It was about a people making themselves visible and saying everything had to change. And I told you, we never had to live like this before.
All right. Thanks. Thank you, Keith. Let's move on to our last questioner, Mayor Michael Nutter.
Thanks, Larry. Good evening.
Good evening.
First, I'd like to have more of a lightning round experience with you. And again, most of my questions will be in the area of judgment and decision-making and thought process. Okay? So the School District of Philadelphia, somewhere in the last week, 10 days, actually sued the city, which seems rather unreal, if not dysfunctional, but I'm going to put that to the side. It's regarding Bill 210685AA, the Special Certification of Inspection Bill. You co-sponsored that bill, if you're mayor, you'll actually be the defendant in that suit. How will you defend the city against the school district regarding a bill that you co-sponsored and voted for?
Yeah, so to be clear, I will also have a new school board, and I will be making sure that our school board is working in concert with the city. That bill related to whether schools could open after tremendous renovations had been done.
Ms. Gim,
Yeah.
I don't want to go through the history of the bill. It's a specific question about your actions as mayor involving a bill that you sponsored, and now you're on the other side of the table of a
But
lawsuit.
I'm trying to explain that, Mr. Mayor, because I think the context does matter, actually. So the School District of Philadelphia has also come under fire for the opening of dangerous schools that had, including asbestos, open asbestos lines, the prevalence of lead that actually poisoned a child, an elementary school child in the Northeast,
I got it.
and mold that has sent children to, to the emergency room in hospitals, including a teacher who is now suffering from a bizarre form of only asbestos-related cancer. I felt like the school district had failed, and I made it clear that our city is going to do what is necessary to enforce the safety and well-being so that every family, every parent knows that, and every educator and school staff know that when they walk into a building, this city is going to look out for them. We are not going to tolerate the poisoning and the destruction of people's lives in the name of, a bunch of whatever that they were suing over. And I also think that lawsuit is going to be resolved. I do not think it's healthy or safe for, the district to be standing on the position that it is.
Okay. You voted against Bill 180888, commonly known as the Farmer Bill. In retrospect, do you think it was a mistake for you to vote against that bill when you potentially have either an actual or an appearance of conflict of interest, given that your husband at the time worked for AmerisourceBergen, which is one of the largest drug distributors in the country, recently settled a $6.1 billion settlement with the
Thank you for telling me
Justice
my
Department.
husband's job. I know what his job
No,
is.
let me finish the question. That's between the two of you. Given the massive nature of the opioid crisis across the country, and especially here in Philadelphia,
Yes.
should you have voted in that matter, or should you have abstained?
Okay. So to be clear, only 5 people out of 17 voted for that bill.
I'm asking
12
about
out of
you.
17 did not support that bill, including none of the mayoral candidates who are on council at the time. That bill was deeply flawed, and I think that there was ample evidence that it,
My question was about actual or perceived conflict of interest, given your special relationship with the pharmaceutical industry. That's the
So-
question.
So I understand, and as I said, I stand by that vote as it was, because I think, it was very clear. No, it did not have support from a vast majority, a supermajority of council.
I understand. Okay. All right. The question was about recusal, but in an op-ed a few years ago, you said, as a charter school founder myself, I believe there is a discrete and limited role for charters within a vibrant public school system. Yet in many instances, you have actively proclaimed opposition to charter schools all across the city, and in some instances in black and brown communities. Yet you are a charter school founder, but in many instances in the city, you run opposed to charters, notwithstanding your earlier support or statement of support in an op-ed that you wrote. Are you for charters or against charters?
So I am very clear that as mayor, my job is to be the mayor for every child in every school system, public, private, parochial, and charter. The charter world has changed dramatically over 30 years. I've been part of that conversation over a period of 30 years, and it has evolved over time. And as you would have seen in the time period when, under your administration, 30 public schools were shut down, and in return, charter schools at the same amount were expanded dramatically to replace those public schools.
Because the students left those schools, and the buildings were in terrible shape, and the kids weren't getting a great education. And the school district was in financial crisis during the Great Recession. That's why those schools closed.
For clarity, I'm referring to the schools that you actually took as public and then converted directly over to charter. So that's not the same thing.
You mean what the superintendent did? You mean what the superintendent did? I supported his actions, but let's be, if you want to be technical about it, right?
I am being
At the time,
technical.
we had a SRC,
Yes, we're being
not the Board of
technical.
Education that we have
So
today.
I have been very clear that, yes, I oppose those types of practices. In fact, I worked with one of my colleagues on city council that proved that parents did not want to see that conversion when, under your school system, they were forced into a vote and to a horrible kind of situation where they were literally told they would get no funding or support if they remained public, but they would get all these resources if they went charter. I thought that was a warped conversation, and I felt like it was an important time for us to have a counterbalance, because fundamentally, people can say as much as they want, the mayor is directly responsible for the schools under district control. Those are the ones that I need to see in better shape than they ever were before. If there's any kind of critique of me or anything about me, I think that they would say that I'm one of the district's harshest critics. I have held that system to account for the failures that it has done in not appropriately educating young people and forcing them to seek literally any other option, many of which are very poor, because those schools are not in shape. As mayor, I am determined to make sure that our public schools come back to vitality and vibrancy, and that they are a deserving alternative in that choice landscape.
And I think we also know that many of those schools, whether they were district schools or not, or parents seeking a different experience for their children, I'm only questioning the seeming potential contradiction in that you started a charter school, but then in many instances in Black and brown communities, you've been opposed to those charter schools. Where do those parents' voices get to be? They left the public school system. They didn't move to Kansas. They left the school system, walked past the neighborhood school, and went to another school.
Yep. So
I'm just trying to understand the distinction here of starting your own but being opposed to others.
So, Mr. Mayor, here's what I would say, is that I probably wouldn't be on this stage if not for the decisions that occurred under your administration. We are very different people. No, I'm just saying we are very different people. And I always knew that when I came in and saw, my children suffered the consequences of not having nurses and counselors in their schools. My children suffered the consequences of seeing, parents that I was very close to suffered the consequences of seeing schools closed down in Black and brown neighborhoods, by the way, in public elementary schools, where there were whole swaths of the city that were now educational deserts. So if you moved in there, you had no place to send your child to kindergarten. And I told myself, if I had the chance to be in a different position, I would show myself to be a different kind of leader. The fact that we see each other and we see things in vastly different lights, we are just in total disagreement. I would not be the same kind of leader who had done what I had witnessed at the time. And to be clear again, these are not, one day say one thing, another day say another. This was over 25 years of seeing a system evolve. The school that I started was in 2005. The system that I am fighting for, a city that I'm fighting for right now in 2023 and for 2033 and beyond, is for everybody, to have the kind of quality system that every child and every parent in this city deserves. And frankly, our city will not grow because of it. So I don't want to get too lost in this conversation about where things are going to be. This public school system needs to grow. I hope that if if I'm held accountable for anything at the end of 4 years, it will be, have I helped grow the Philadelphia public school system? Because over the last 10 years of disinvestment in our city and the failure to actually renovate buildings, give our kids basic education, you know, Lower Merion is building a $140 million middle school for its 12-year-olds,
Yeah.
okay? And our kids are playing on broken asphalt for playgrounds, and they go to schools that aren't even air-conditioned, and 30 schools out of 216 were open for summer last year, and that cannot continue. So this is the thing that we're gonna try and turn around.
Well, I appreciate all that. I'm very familiar with Lower Merion. I would just mention to you, I mean, you keep talking about the disinvestment. In the 08 to about 12 period of time, we saw the largest recurring investment in public education in modern times. While the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, under Tom Corbett, was cutting funding for education, I raised taxes 4 times for the school district, including during the election year in 2011, and convinced City Council that we did need to invest. It's also why we had our graduation rate for high school students go from 53% to 68% when I left. I'm just saying, all is not lost. It is not a horrible place, and some children actually graduated and went on to college. So, down to the last. You said this. You've got to have somebody when, as soon as they walk into the room, systems of oppression fall and new systems of opportunity are built. This is you. When I walk into the room, systems of oppression fall and new systems of opportunity come up, and everybody in this room knows it. I guess I just have to say, I mean, I literally never heard Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela, Mother Teresa, or Mahatma Gandhi ever say anything like that. But I guess I just want to ask, I mean, is that what happened when you walked into the Union League? Did the systems of oppression fall? Is that what happened? I mean, what does that mean?
I think it means that I'm probably the biggest threat to the status quo of the old politics of old. And I think that people who feel threatened by it represent a type of politics that I'm trying to get away from. Like, we have to ask ourselves as a city, we have been ruled by an old, antiquated form of politics that have left us far too comfortable for far too long. And I am trying to turn that around. I'm obviously not taking
Democratic
credit
Party?
and saying that I'm gonna, do all this stuff. But yeah, is that my attitude when I come into a room? Absolutely fucking lootly. Oh. I mean, I am trying to stop terrible things from happening to people.
I understand.
And I am trying in its space. I literally said, systems of opportunity come up. Is that a threat to anybody here?
No.
Because if it is,
was-
we're in the wrong room. This is not the Philadelphia
I was trying to
Citizen.
understand that everything just falls when you walk in. I mean, these are your words.
That's
It's
not.
an interesting statement.
I think it is an attitude that I have. I did not come in here to hold and become a bench warmer. I'm not here after 4 terms on city council or whatever, multiple years of being a career elected. I came here to show people that we do not have to live like this, that we can actually fix the things that hold us back, and the most biggest thing that holds us back is us. It's not actually all these forces that are out there. It's the failure to get in and talk to communities, to tell and build a needs-based budget, to recognize that, no, I don't have enough money to fix everything in the world. But you know what I do have? I have a great idea, and I can leverage money. If I can show you that we can topple an eviction system, you and everybody else will want to make that possible, because a roof over somebody's head is literally the first step to stability and opportunity. And I will do that for education, and I'm gonna do that for job opportunities, and I'm gonna do that for our mental health and well-being, to bring our kids back to freaking life. And I'm gonna do that to bring this city into the modern era and stop giving us the same tired solutions that hold people back all the time.
All right. I love this. Let's go to Charles Ellison for, how are we doing on time here? We're pretty good for 5 to 8 minutes of questions.
8 minutes? All right, let's do
Well, 7. We'll settle at 7.
it. All right.
All right, 8.
8. Take it 8. Yeah, thank you. All right, good evening, Councilwoman. How you doing?
Good evening,
All right,
Charles.
thanks for coming tonight.
Good to see
All
you.
right, good to
Thanks.
see you. Okay, these are questions from the audience. What data points should Philadelphia residents use to measure quality of life?
So I think life expectancy, health and well-being, that is very important to me. I think it's profoundly essential, and I'm glad that Dr. Leaphart, you're here on this stage, because honestly, I don't think we talked enough about health. But, you know, it is horrifying. The life expectancy differences between 2 zip codes less than half a mile apart can be, you know, 20 to 25 years or more. And we're the largest city in the country that doesn't even have a public hospital network. So yes, I am going to make life expectancy and the health and well-being of people of all ages to be a #1 priority for me. I want to make sure that whether it's a young teenager living in North Philadelphia or whether it is a mom who is trying to get health care from an institution for her baby to be born healthy and whole, that those things are measured and that we are held accountable to that as a city. I think there's no question that I'm going to be focused in on and to me that's related directly to safety. It's just that, you know, homicides and these things, I need not just for homicides to go down, I need the health and well-being of individuals to rise. Because those two things, you can see the homicides go down and you cannot see an improvement in health and well-being of our neighborhoods and communities. I've got to see that truly rise, and then I'll know we'll be a better city. Education and the education of our young people, absolutely. And then I would like to see a 50% growth in the number of businesses that are here in Philadelphia as well.
Okay, next question. Philadelphia is still technically a majority black city. Are you pro-black? What will you do specifically for black people?
Well, I am very proud to have had all of my policy agendas in City Council led by a black woman. I am very proud that my outreach and all of my work in terms of reaching people have been led from my City Council body by black leaders. I'm very proud that everything that I have, all the work that we've done, whether it's around schools or around eviction prevention or the fight for a fair work week and basic labor rights that are due to people, have been led by black and brown people all over the city of Philadelphia. So that answer is yes. I am pro-black. I hope that I can demonstrate it, and I hope that it's not just me up here saying it, but that it's a 30-year track record of having done it.
If you become mayor, what would you do for the thousands of renters that have a plethora of issues from landlords that the city of Philadelphia give licenses to and never check to make sure their properties are habitable and that they maintain their properties?
Yes, thank you for asking that question from anyone in the audience. So, Philadelphia has to change. We are a city that has, a lot of new renters. In fact, I think we've tipped over 50%. And this is a community that deserves to have rights and protections. And our protections right now are really behind almost every other major American city. And so I would like to make sure that we are working in concert with communities, with landlord associations and others to make sure that we find a really robust place for people to say that this is a place that they can live. I do think I'm very proud of the work that we've done on the eviction prevention work. It's not just about stopping evictions. We've created over 4 years a bi-monthly table that continues to meet on a regular basis that has a large group of advocates, city agencies, landlord associations that are continuing to figure out this landscape. I do hope that we have a vibrant city council and a new leadership within the administration that takes on the challenges of rising rents and other types of things and makes sure that we are building a city that remains affordable, that remains housing first, and that we ensure that the people who really need and are priced out of markets are going to find a place to call home.
All right, thank you. Next question. Your stance is anti-charter. anti-charter school, but you started a charter school that benefited your kids. You claimed to condemn the Union League, but then you attended an event there. These are two examples of your hypocrisy. How can Philadelphians, and especially Black Philadelphians, trust you?
Yes. So I would say I'm pro-public education, and I'm pro-education and pro-child. And what I will say is that, as I said before about the Union League, I have made it very clear that attending an event there was, sent the wrong message. And, I have fought for safe and inclusive spaces all my life. I have fought Ron DeSantis's policies long before they ever made their way over to the Union League. I have a lifetime of fighting for immigrant rights, for civil and voting rights here in the city of Philadelphia, for making sure that there are protections for LGBT and especially trans youth. And I will continue as mayor to make sure that Ron DeSantis's policies never ever become normalized in this city that we call home. And I hope I have the grace to be judged on a track record of 30 years. We will let people decide that.
All right. What will you do in the first 100 days to address the drug crisis in Kensington?
So the drug crisis in Kensington, is serious. It's obviously something that has not come up over, a short period of time, but it has to end under my administration. The open-air drug markets and other things have to come to a close, and reclaiming Kensington and other places as neighborhoods that should be for neighbors. But I'm also very clear that this is not just about marshallization or anything like that. What Kensington lacks and what cities all across the Philadelphia lack is a real investment in those communities. So for my 100 days, I hope the first things that people see are, one, we are cleaning up right away, that we are delivering city services. I think every civic and public space is immediately opened up and put into vibrant use. That includes making sure that McPherson Square is maybe an outpost for another part of City Hall. It's making sure that our neighbors there know that I don't consider Kensington just be a Kensington problem. It's not only just a city problem, it's a regional issue. And I'm gonna try to work with communities and members there to make sure that happens. But I am also gonna emphasize, especially for this community, because there was a really powerful story written in the former public school notebook, Chalkbeat, about elementary school kids who are walking to and from Gloria Casara's elementary school. And these are children who are, they're in kindergarten and 10 years old, and they are articulating out some of the things that they are witnessing. I want safe passage to and from school. And if that means that we're using SEPTA or new school buses to get kids moving back and forth, or if we're utilizing SEPTA, town watches, our police department and our school district, to say that this city shuts down between 7 to 9 a.m. and 3 to 5 p.m. so that our kids know that all eyes are on them, and that at least for this amount of time, if we stop what we're doing and we make sure our kids get to and from school safely, I don't think we're just a safer city. I think we're a better society.
Do one more?
One more.
Do one more. And then we'll
In May last year, Philadelphians voted by a margin of 72-28% to approve an amendment to the Home Rule Charter to expand and place qualifications on the Zoning Board of Adjustment. Did you support this measure? And how do you see it impacting the city during your term as mayor?
So I think that one of the things that I hope we can do with zoning, which is a very complicated issue in the city of Philadelphia, again, I want our city to be seen in a much more proactive, unified, aggressively planned light. I would like us to have common rules that go across communities and neighborhoods. I would like to see developers held accountable for the promises that they make in any kind of thing, and not to see like parcel by parcel kinds of exceptions to things. It's as mayor, I hope that the strength of our city will be the ability to not have things be just parcel by parcel zoning. We'll rely on a really strong mayor who is able to deliver a really strong vision on planning, development, protections for communities so that we can remain long-term here, but also allow vibrant growth because we got to grow Philadelphia. And we can't be afraid of any of that.
All right.
Councilwoman. Thank you, Larry.
Thank you, Charles. Thank you, WURD, and thank you, former Councilmember.
Thank you, everybody.
Gym, for your public service. I have one last question for you. I've asked everyone this. If elected mayor, would you come back to a room like this with these people for an annual performance review?
If the room is like this, absolutely.
All right. Thank you all.